So okay, that's working now. Just come on, just work first time around, and then we can just get going, and everything will be super awesome. There we go. Hey, it's working. It's working. Okay, yeah, I have no. I'm so sorry. I don't know why it was doing that. I have absolutely no idea why I was doing that. And I'm just gonna put in like convo/debate because I honestly don't know what this will turn into or how like into it we're gonna get with just purple potato. That's fine, right?
For sure.
Okay. Convo debate. And okay, yeah, populism and socialism convo/debate with purple potato. Okay, that's fine. It's fine. I'm not gonna sit on it too long. We just need to get going. Okay. Okay, I think everything's actually working now. And if I close out of that and go back to Discord, Discord should be. It's still Yes, it's still just capturing my video. Okay, and then refresh this page. And there's the live stream. Oh god, my laptop camera is such garbage, but I have all the equipment to like not have it be garbage. I'm just lazy, but also the first time I have. There I am. God, I can't listen to my own voice too much, otherwise I go insane. Anyways, okay. Anyways, yeah. Anyways, enough with all that stupid garbage. Okay, we're here. We're talking. We're live. We did have 2 viewers before. Maybe they'll jump back in, or maybe I sent them off to the fucking void and they'll never return. But anyways, what's up, guys? I'm Cleary, and I suck at troubleshooting. Yeah, I'm gonna be talking with Purple Potato. And say hi, I guess.
Hello, everyone. I'm Purple Potatoes.
Yeah, and we're gonna be talking about populism and socialism/communism. And by the way, I say socialism/communism because it seems like socialism in a lot of ways is kind of a stepping stone towards communism. It's kind of like early communism almost. I know that's not entirely right, but that's just how I have it in my head. And typically when we're talking about these things, I mean, like, those 2 systems come from the same ideology. But so it's just convenient, I guess, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. I have no qualms about that. Yeah.
Okay. So would you rather start with populism or socialism?
Well, I mean, I guess we can go with populism, man. To get my thoughts out of the way on populism just off the bat, Trump called himself a populist, and he did attract a lot of working class elements, but populism, it's just like the idea that a politician should be for like the broad populace, and I don't think appealing to that in a political sense is in a pragmatic way bad or in a moral way bad. And that's just my sort of position on populism.
Okay, so when I think of populism, I think it almost every single time it's used. I think maybe actually, like, by definition, it's when a politician appeals to the masses, like, directly, and says the system has failed you. You need to act in order to like recover it, to save yourself, and all that. And that, I hope for very obvious reasons, can lead to a lot of harm. Like, if you're like sowing distrust in our system, like in our democracy or our republic, that. I mean, obviously, like the only way it works is if everybody's bought in, right?
Yeah. I think in modern day America, the reason populism takes that sort of radical form is mainly because the system, as the broad sort of economic system as it is right now, has not really been getting better. It isn't on any sort of trajectory that seems to be leading to a place the broad populace wants to go. And because of that, populism will, I think, take on this character of being very radical against the establishment as it is right now. But I think that's like a unique characteristic of populism in modern day America, and I don't think it's necessary as a characteristic of populism in America, right? Like Bernie Sanders, you know?
Yeah, but didn't Bernie Sanders? Oh no, I could be wrong about this. I very much could be wrong about this. Has he ever? He's been pretty pro like our democracy and all that, right? Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure he has been. Yeah, no, so in that case, you would be right. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to bleed into that. So like, this all started because of that Vosh video I made, right, where he covered Biden's like Biden's January 6th speech. And I was saying that I really don't want Biden. I think, like Vosh brought up, it would be nice if Biden started talking more populist to reach out to more like people and all that. And his example, he was being hyperbolic, but his example was, oh, they're gonna kill you, Jack. They're gonna come into your bedroom while you're sleeping at night and kill you. Like I don't want my president to start talking like. I don't want him to even like get close to that. Do you know what I mean? I just. Especially when we have Trump, he's already like making like the political landscape so like hellish. I don't want Biden to start talking in similar ways.
I personally view aesthetics and politics like that in a pretty negative light. You know, I
Oh, are you pausing, or you might have cut out?
Sorry, is it clear now?
Yeah, I can hear you again.
All right. Biden as a character, whether or not he gets screaming or not, I guess I personally don't mind. I'm more interested in the pragmatics of whether or not that sort of language would affect voters in a way to get them to vote for Biden against Trump. And I think you're right. I think a lot of liberals have really been radicalized against I guess threats of violence like that. I don't think it's anything necessarily bad. I don't think like within itself that sort of scaremongering is necessarily bad, so long as he's being true, right?
Even in a situation where like political violence was starting to become more common, I wouldn't necessarily want my president to come out and say that the Republicans are starting to go insane. There's potential they're going to start like the second Civil War or something, because that just leads to it being more likely that will actually happen. I would rather have Biden do something similar to what he did when he first became president, where he tried to bring everybody together, right? He said he is not the president of the Democratic Party. He's the president of the American people or whatever. I love that sort of talk. I absolutely love that. So, like, even if we were approaching some sort of, like, political violence nationwide, I still don't know if I would want my president to start, like, actively, like, talking about killing people, essentially. Especially since, once again, like, we already have Trump's insanity to deal with. That's already bad enough. Like, if both sides go down the drain, we're absolutely fucked. That's my thought on it, but...
For sure. I think Biden... despite not doing that sort of whole scaremongering thing, has actually been pretty populist and could probably lean on being more rhetorically populist in the future. I think especially his union policies have really characterized him as a sort of populist president.
No, wait, can I pause you there for a second? I'm not very familiar with his union policy. Can you fill me in on that?
Yeah, for sure. I know there was a railroad strike recently, and Biden sort of forced the workers to accept a deal that they were less than eager to accept. But I'm pretty sure that even after they had accepted that deal, Biden sort of pushed for them and convinced the railroad companies to concede more things even after the deal was signed. And I'd have to look into that. I'd have to pull up sources, but and he's also recently even gone on tours with unions. He's like the first president to ever go and be on the line on like standing alongside workers striking. I think I'm fairly certain of that. So yeah.
Um, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't necessarily consider that. Well, that now that does look pretty populist when you're like, God damn it, hold on. um, I'm pretty sure it has more emphasis on like, press the stripes to appeal to all people feel it. No, I would say I would say that's pretty populist. Yeah, for sure. Okay. I guess in that case, yeah. Once again, like you can't have populism without that sort of like, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that. So I guess when I say I have a problem with populism, it really is like what you were describing before. This like kind of the modern American populism, like our Trump's populism. I guess I would love us to avoid that. I guess like, and you could also say that like his January 6th speech was actually a little bit populist because he is starting to like tell that line of well, I mean, he's saying essentially if Trump becomes president, then the system will truly be against you. We're kind of fucked at that point. So I don't know. Okay, so I guess maybe I'm kind of recontextualizing this in my head as we speak.
I do also want to kind of push back on the idea that Trump was altogether that populist. I know that his tax policy, for example, he gave a permanent tax break to multi-billion dollar corporations, and alongside that also gave tax cuts to like middle class families and whatnot. But he made sure that the middle class tax breaks would expire while the corporate tax breaks wouldn't. And that's pretty poopy of him.
Okay, well, so in that, yeah, no, it is. So I would say Trump is definitely not populist through action. It's definitely, just through like speech and all that when he's talking about the fucking like like coal miners and crap. And of course when he's talking about like draining the swamp and like fixing the system for the people and all that. Like he's pretty much just like a populist like in word, not action. I would agree with you there, but
for sure.
Yeah, I just. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just didn't like how you wrote off populism like as a whole when I think it's really politically efficacious to use, and it just seemed like a bit of a waste to write it off in its entirety.
Okay, yeah, and I would say that's fair at the point we're at. It's to be clear, though, once again, like once you start getting into like the realm of political violence or like your country's being taken from you, that sort of rhetoric, which I would say is like kind of an extreme form of populism. Well, at this point, I would say that. That's where I start having like a really, really big issue with it. Well, it's kind of like the same when it comes to like live streamers talking about like genocides in America and stuff. I hate it when people go there. I hate it like, oh, they're all out to fucking murder you and shit. It's like you're creating all of this fear for like nothing. It could potentially lead to a lot of bad outcomes. I think it's incredibly irresponsible. Trump's like the pinnacle of that, though. Like, obviously, how he talks about America and like Democrats is insanely irresponsible. And I really don't like when politicians go that far. I guess that's more or less what I'm trying to say.
When you say genocides in America, do you mean like white replacement sort of stuff, or like immigrants at our southern border being like what's unable to be, they do surgeries to make them unable to be pregnant. I forgot the word for that.
Wait, but that's actively happening right now? What?
I know there were some articles that came out on it a little bit ago. I think maybe a few years ago.
Wait, like our government is like sterilizing people?
I think there were some doctors who, without permission from the United States government, did that.
Oh,
But
okay,
they,
okay. Never mind then. Never mind. If you have some
I
like freelance
think that's what
doctors.
happened.
Okay, okay. I never here. Let's move on that because I don't want to sit here reading a shit ton while we're trying to have a conversation. I can look into that later though. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say if that's like endorsed by the government, that would actually blow my mind. At that point, Biden would actually be fucked. But no, when I'm talking about genocides, I guess I would include the whole like the Great Replacement crap. That's really weird. But also on the left, what immediately popped into my head was like the trans genocide stuff I've heard thrown around by like really far left people. There's like absolutely no evidence for an actual like trans genocide or anything like that going on. And I think when you start acting like there is, it just once again creates a bunch of needless fear that can lead to actual real world like harm.
Um, I suppose we're not on like necessarily we're not at the trans genocide, but I think that if we don't push back against Republican policies enough, we'll certainly like get on that road though.
Potentially.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
all.
we're always going to. Well, I mean, unless something really bad happens. I mean, Democrats are always going to be here to provide like pushback for that, though, right? I don't foresee a future where America genuinely like goes that route, if that makes sense. Like something really extreme would have to happen before that.
You know, Trump is sort of backing that, and he is the main Republican front runner for 2024.
No,
I
that's
don't think he
fair.
particularly cares, but he'll go along with whatever Republicans say.
No, that's fair. And Trump is really scary in a lot of ways. But I would say the only way he's ever going to like fully take hold of the government is if he has like military backing. I don't know if he's ever truly gonna be able to get that. Like I don't. I think if he did try to like pull a coup again, that he would need him like he would need the military on his side. Otherwise, they could just come in and like fucking rip him out of the White House, right? So I don't. I honestly. Oh god, and on top of that, like when it comes to the whole like Trump craziness, I think we're probably gonna be fine at the end of the day. He definitely does pose a serious threat to like our republic, but I think as long as once again we still have the military on our side, we're probably gonna be fine. But
Republicans as a whole, I think ever since Obama, at the very least, that's when I've heard, like, when they refused to confirm Obama's judge, and then Trump got three judge confirmations, and, well, it just seems like the Republican Party, maybe not as a whole, but enough of it is functioning in an anti-democratic way. And I guess I just disagree that Trump by himself is the problem.
I think it largely does come down to Trump. I mean, for instance, like isn't it amazing that Pence like still like went through with the inauguration or like passing power off to Biden? I think that's like it just the amount of willpower it must have taken to like resist the pressure coming from Trump and like stay loyal to the Constitution is amazing. Like I don't think like all hope is lost when it comes to Republicans. It still seems like a lot of them do value the Constitution. It's just a lot of them have been lied to for like years at this point by Trump, right? I
I
wouldn't.
agree with that with voters. But the fact that there were enough Republican government officials to nearly undemocratically continue their governance, and it came down to one dude. I view that, I guess, far less positively than you do. Uh,
Sorry. So wait. When okay, you're talking about Obama trying to get somebody in the Supreme Court, right? This is a while
no,
back.
I mean, like you were just talking about how Pence had an incredible strength of character to allow the democratic process to continue. And what I'm saying is that there were enough government officials to nearly undemocratically let Trump continue his service in office. And the fact that it came down to one dude, I find far less comforting than I guess you do.
I mean, other Republican politicians might have been willing to like accept Trump doing that. I think most probably would have ended up falling in line if something like that would have happened. But I mean, in that instance, Pence was really the only one that mattered, right? Like he was the one passing the power off. So, am I missing something there? Sorry. Once again, I'm trying to get my brain together a little bit. I'm still a little. And
I mean,
oh, I'm sorry. Wait, actually, can you hold that thought really quick? I want to. Something's been distracting me. I want to make sure that like your voice is actually coming through on the live stream. I've just been worrying about that. I'm sorry. One sec.
For sure.
Sure that like your voice is actually coming through on the live stream. I've just been worrying about that. I'm sorry. One sec.
For sure.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Like your voice is actually. Okay. Anyways, you were gonna say about like once again we're on. Well, I think Pence was really the only politician that mattered in that case because it was his duty to pass off the power.
I could look more into that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. You don't have it like okay. I don't know. Anyways, this wasn't like, yeah, we kind of drifted off from the main talking points. So, okay. So I'd say to wrap up the populism part, I suppose I did write it off a little too quickly. Yeah, you convinced me on that. Certain types of populism, as long as you don't start dipping into like the entire system's fucked or people are going to come kill you, as long as you don't go to those extreme ends, I think I'm okay with a bit of populism. I think that's okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so you convinced me.
I win. Let's.
Yeah, you win. I got a medal somewhere for you. I'll mail it to you. Okay. Okay. This next subject. Well, I mean, fucking capitalist and socialist debates have been going on for fucking ever, basically. So I'm guessing neither one of us is probably going to get shifted. But here, I need to ask you a starter question. Just this little primer question. Do you think socialism and or communism have been tried before?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, thank God, because if you said you think they haven't, at this point, all I'm saying to that is basically like, if you think they haven't been tried, then any claim you can put forward, like saying, oh, it'll bring us all these good things, it's all just like a fantasy in your head because you have no real world evidence at that point. But okay, so we were talking about, yeah, oh, by the way, that video that you commented under about socialism and communism, that is the first video I have uploaded that I truly regret. There were two big mistakes in that video. I misinterpreted something that guy said, Second Thought said, and I said that he supported Russia in their efforts against Ukraine. I was remembering something he said about Israel-Palestine. He does not. Like, I actually looked into it a bit. He does because thankfully a commenter let me know that I had made the mistake. He does not support Russia in their war effort, like, at all. So I think that's the first video where at the very least I know of, I made like two big just factual errors, and that really bothers me. But otherwise, I think, well, like, I mean, to be fair, Second Thought was lying about Japan surrendering. Okay, like throwing out a peace treaty and then like there was a huge like gulf between the Allies and Japan. Like I don't know if there was any way to resolve it because they were not going to let go of their emperor, and I think that was a non-negotiable for the Allies. I don't think there was any way to avoid more conflict at that point. But anyways, sorry. Okay, so we were talking specifically about like we can start there. Democracy in the workplace. You think that for sure that will end up benefiting the country overall, right? Can you elaborate on that?
I do think that it'll end up benefiting the country. But even if I didn't think that, I'm pretty sure I would still support it. Just because I value democracy and I value people's ability to determine for themselves what they want to do for their lives. And socialism, that being democratic ownership over where a person works, allows them more control over their life. And capitalism, that being private ownership over where a person works.
So I think of democracy as a tool for freedom, right? It's a tool to get us to the point where we do have more freedom, more of a say in like how things are run and all that. But I don't think it's the end all be all for freedom necessarily. Like for instance, let's say just hypothetically, I'm not saying this would be an extreme example. I don't think it would get this bad. But if America moved to a purely co-op system, let's say that co-ops are like so fucking inefficient compared to the standard business models, where like our wealth like nationwide is cut by like half. That would end up restricting people when it comes to like resources and opportunities. Like everyone's freedoms at that point would end up becoming smaller, right? Or would you agree with that?
Yeah, people need their technical ability to do a thing, you know? Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so like in a case like that, if it turns out that, and we don't have enough information on co-ops, at least not when it comes to America, they're like few and far between, right? Um, but that also like begs the question of like, well, why? If they're so like efficient and effective, and it grants people more freedoms, why don't we see them more often? I guess that's another question I have for you. Like, why do you think we don't see them so often?
I mean, fair enough question. I in the system, I guess I'm kind of speculating here. I'll fully admit at the outset that I don't know. But in the system we have now, capitalism, uh, money sort of concentrates itself into fewer and fewer hands. And I simply that sort of economic uh, distribution doesn't lend itself to the idea that corporations should be democratically owned, right? I've also heard a fair bit about McDonald's franchises being denied to people if they catch a whiff of the idea that cooperatives will be instituted there.
Okay, so specifically with the McDonald's example, this I was not aware of. I kind of co-op did not. I kind of just want to look into it a little. I'm sorry. It could potentially be because, I mean, they're like a huge franchise. They depend a lot on like public opinion of them, right? Like they might just be worried about how it would look. It's possible. That's just a speculation on my part, though. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, here I'm not even. Yeah, I need to look more into that example because I don't know enough. It could be. It could be for other reasons. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure. But I could see them just not liking the public appearance of franchising, like having McDonald's out there that is like a co-op, because co-ops are still kind of. They're definitely they fill a certain niche for sure. There's like a bit of a cult following when it comes to co-ops, but like ultimately they're not like broadly popular, it seems. So
there have been studies though on cooperatives. There it's been shown that they are generally more resistant to economic shocks because they try to keep on their employees even through those economic shocks instead of firing them, which leads to like lower training costs and stuff like that.
So I've heard about that, and once again, I feel like we have to see more examples of co-ops in like under different circumstances and stuff. There are other factors that could be getting in the way of that stat, or that would change that stat if things were like if co-ops were on like a more broad scale. I feel like we just don't see enough co-ops to really say one way or another. Like once again, like on my part, they could actually be more efficient and effective than like the standard business model. It's just like we haven't seen enough, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry if I'm being a little rude here, but that feels like a bit of a cop out, you know? Like you're saying we need examples, and then here are the examples. There have been studies done that show that these cooperatives are efficient.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, okay, for instance, the biggest retort I've heard when it comes to that argument is the fact that typically, if you're going to start a co-op, it's going to be you and a bunch of rich friends, right? And, like the buy-in's usually pretty high for like starting a co-op. So like that could play a factor into it, like the resistance to like economic shocks and all that. Like if the owners, the people that established the business, were already wealthy, then of course they're going to be more resistant, right?
It's
That's kind of an example of what I'm talking about. We don't have enough information. Or there could be confounding variables. There we go.
studies have shown that they are, in effect, more resistant to economic shocks, though. So even if rich people keeping them afloat is what's even if they are started by rich people, they still perform better comparatively to privately owned corporations.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is if we did it on a broad scale, it wouldn't just be rich people buying in at that point. So like co-ops aren't necessarily inherently more resistant to price shocks. That's what I'm saying.
All right.
Well, that's a speculation on my part. It's just a criticism of like that stat, and they might have actually they might have I can't think of words right now. They might have done things to try to get rid of those sorts of confounding variables, but I'm not sure. Once again, my overall issue is like here I can look it up real quick. How many co-ops in the USA? There are more than 40,000 co-ops, but like how many businesses are there? So let's say, oh my God. So there are only 40,000 co-ops or somewhere around that range out of 33 million small businesses. That's just small businesses. Apparently there are 33 million small businesses in America. So like what I'm saying is like our sample size is insanely tiny. There's like, yeah, there could be a million different factors that get in the way of like any sort of like conclusion we would draw from the sample we have. Does that make sense?
I suppose the only way to get through that would be to actually read them. Read more than just like actually analyze them, I suppose.
Oh, sorry. It's not just like these aren't just like opinions popping to my head either. Like I've heard like, well, I'm guessing seems like we occupy similar space. We've probably heard the same like discussions and debate. That's just the biggest criticism I've heard over and over again of any sort of like conclusion that's been drawn about co-ops is that there just aren't well, it's like trying to run a study to see if like girls are more attracted to a certain type of guy, but you only have like 40 people participate in that study and they're all like college students or something like that. You're probably not going to be able to draw any conclusions about the broader population from that study. You would agree with that, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so that's my issue with that. It sounds like it would be really hard to like rule out like some big things. Like once again, I don't know if there definitely are like people that are kind of like lower middle class, starting co-ops. I'm guessing that's probably not a very common thing. I would imagine that once again, the people that are starting these co-ops are more often than not like pretty well off. So once again, that's just a really simple kind of like counter argument to like, all right, it's another explanation. It's another explanation outside of co-ops are just better. Like it could possibly be that the people that run these co-ops are already like really well off, and that's why these businesses are like able to resist price shocks. But I could be wrong. Once again, maybe these studies have they've gotten rid of that variable. They've figured it out, and it's like not a thing in the study or whatever. I could read more into it. Yeah, you're right. Like,
I guess the only way to be sure is to make there be more of them, huh?
And I wouldn't be opposed to that if the government did something to like promote co-ops or whatever. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to that. Yeah, it would be interesting, even though that could potentially be kind of. Well, I don't want to say risky. It could be. It's definitely a bit of a risk, but or it could just like lead to us like overall nationwide getting like producing slightly less, I guess, if they're not as efficient once again. But I don't know. Yeah, it would be interesting to see how co-ops like performed on like a broad scale outside of countries that ended up kind of fucking themselves, like Russia and China. I know that they tried to establish like nationwide co-ops. I'm not, even though I need to read into that more too. I don't know how successful they were. I mean, I think technically all the businesses in those countries were co-ops, but I mean, they weren't really worker owned. I know that the communist parties, like they were like holding the power for the people, right? They were representatives of the people, supposedly, even though they weren't democratically elected. Oh God, all of that. What do you think about Russia and China? That's a good question. How about that?
I am a little glad you asked. I didn't want to leave anyone wondering if I was pro the Soviet Union.
I don't think you are, by the way.
I'm pretty against both of them. Authoritarianism just on its own is like the one strike you're out for me, you know?
Right. So that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to the socialism, communism debate stuff. Is it seems like you need some sort of revolution to establish it because no one's going towards it naturally. And if you overthrow the government, if you have that vanguard party, I'm not saying this is the case for every single country, but it seems like vanguard parties overthrowing the government or whatever, or just coming into power one way or another, that seems to be the thing. And then the vanguard party is supposed to establish socialism, communism, whatever, and then release their grip on power. But it always seems to devolve into like totalitarianism, authoritarianism, right? So like, I guess if you were the leader of the vanguard party of America, what would you do to avoid those same pitfalls?
You say that like I'm not already.
Oh no.
No, I think Marxism, Leninism has been tried and it's been proven to fail mainly because the ruling party of a country owning all the means of production and being undemocratic is just capitalism with extra steps, right? What I would do is democratize businesses that already exist. And I think another thing I would also do would be to break them up into smaller regional companies, maybe even on like a state by state level, just because, well, I do think like pragmatically it would be extremely difficult to get a multinational corporation democratized. It would, like, pragmatically speaking, need to be, I think, on a smaller level.
No, yeah, I would agree. So, well, even at that point, it's still, I feel like it's really hard. Like, it just as things stand, it's really hard to figure out like where resources need to go, like how much to create of a certain resource, and how to get it where it needs to go without like market indicators. And if you're looking to get rid of the commodity form, of course you end up throwing those out, right? If there's no money flowing, you don't really know for sure. That's of course like one of the most baseline criticisms of command economies. There we go. But here, I wanted to pull us back really quick. Okay, so you would establish like nationwide co-ops and then try to like split them up and have them like run by the states, essentially. Something along those lines. And probably down to the local level, like certain counties would run themselves to an extent and all that. But like when it comes to establishing that, so yeah, like a party would probably have to take power in order to accomplish that. And then like, what about relinquishing that power? Like, how would you not? How would you avoid that party devolving into authoritarianism? I know it seems like you want to spread out power a bit amongst the states, almost keep like the federal state like levels that we have nowadays. But at some point, you would probably want to move to full on communism, right, and relinquish control altogether. How would you accomplish that?
I'm not too sure about communism. I guess now would be a good time to like explain a little bit about the distinction of communism and socialism, which, to be honest, I don't really understand communism like necessarily the best. But
okay, before you do, communism. Wait, I'm sorry, real quick, just because I have gotten that you don't know what socialism and communism criticism is like a million times, and I fucking do. Can I lay out? I'm gonna lay out what I think it is super duper quick, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, if that works.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, socialism is simply when you give the workers the means of production and get rid of the commodity form. Those two seem to be like the most fundamental level, or like fundamental things. Like you need those two things in order for it to be true socialism. Like without the abolishing the commodity form, you're pretty much left with was it market socialism, where there's still money and everything flowing around, but everything's a co-op. Communism is when you abolish the idea of the nation. There are no borders. There's no central government. There's nothing like that. It's pretty much just people working for people, like they're essentially. Oh, the best way I've heard it put is all unjust hierarchies are like abolished, are just completely gotten rid of, and everything should be more or less a peaceful and equal like society, if that makes sense. Is that more or less? Am I on the right page there?
Yeah, I guess the only qualm I have about that is that market socialism I would still consider to be socialist. I don't really trouble myself too much about the commodity form or anything like that. Um, so
Well, at that
you
point
know,
though, you
like
pretty much just have
by
like.
your
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, by your definition, I wouldn't really be a socialist just because I don't concern myself with that market commodity too much.
Oh, okay. Well, I've I've heard this a couple times that market socialism is basically a cope. I don't. Well, like if you still have money creates so many issues, and if you're trying to like get rid of the injustice, well, I guess so. You're more focused on just more democracy overall, and I can see that. But it's basically just like capitalism with worker democracy. That's what it feels like. It doesn't really feel like we've like fully switched like economic systems.
I'm all right with that.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. People have a million different definitions of what like everything is, and there are a lot of different like ways to go about socialism and communism, from what I've heard. But so overall, I think it's just. It seems like you need some sort of vanguard party to take control of power, whether you do it through the democratic process, or the process the nation already has established, or you do it forcefully. You need some sort of vanguard party to take control of the government, and then that government is supposed to establish socialism, communism. And there have been attempts. There were attempts in Russia to establish nationwide co-ops. There were attempts in China to do the same, to have them like everything like democratically run and all that. These things were tried, but it always seems to like once again devolve into authoritarianism. Well, and to me, it feels like modern socialists and communists, they look at those attempts and they think, well, those people in the past, they did it wrong. They were just stupid. Like, no, like those were probably some of the most intelligent, like political leaders of their time. And they still weren't able to establish these systems, or for whatever reason, they just couldn't get themselves to let go of power. Well, but also it seems like that economic system just isn't as efficient overall as capitalism. It seems like capitalism is like won out in that regard. It's just like, it doesn't seem like true socialism or communism can ever actually be established. Or like, what are your thoughts on that?
Russia, Russia, you know, there was a vanguard party, and then there was everyone. I'm focused on socialism as a democratic ownership of stuff. And Russia had an undemocratic state, and that state owned a bunch of stuff. It owned where people worked. So, like, I know you're probably sick of hearing socialists and communists say this, but yeah, like, Russia isn't compatible with my version of socialism, right? But even despite that, I do think that the Soviet Union's economic rise was impressive nonetheless. It went from being like a Brazil level economy to, by the end of its life, being compared to the United States, right?
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't necessarily like credit socialism or communism for that. That was simply like industrialization, right? Like and that led to the famine. Also, by the way, my whole point in that video. So going back to the message, so I feel like you missed my point in the video, and then what I read through it the first time and responded to your comment, the first two sentences you said, I think I latched onto that first sentence and did not like read the policy part. So I feel like the reason why I was bringing up the fact that Russia under the Soviet Union caused that famine is because like they were criticizing America for similar like atrocities, similar things. My whole point was just you need to be able to like accept or like you need to be able to recognize that your system has also led to these atrocities and stuff like that. I know for you, once again, you don't. You do condemn those sorts of actions. It seems like you're not a fan of Russia and all that, but that was my point in the video overall. I understand that. Well, yeah, actually, that you literally said what my entire point was. I think ultimately, if you have a nation, that nation's probably gonna end up doing some fucked up shit, because nations don't work under this like moral system that people really, really want them to. Nations work on a very practical level, and sometimes practicality demands some really bad crap. Not demands. That's a strong word. Sometimes for convenience, like practicality, convenience-wise, people end up doing some really fucked up shit. But so it almost felt like we were in agreement there, but we were just kind of talking past each other.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, here, just to walk us through like the points we've covered, it seems like we don't disagree all that much, because like, I thought you were more of like a hardline socialist or communist, but it seems like you just want like worker democracy. And honestly, I am like absolutely not opposed to that idea. You do spend like a gigantic chunk of your life in the workplace, so if co-ops, if that system could work like close to as well or maybe even better than the system we have now, or the business model we have now, I would not be opposed to that at all. I don't think there's like any fundamental inherent like badness with that. It just, we need to know that it actually works before fully moving over to it. I think that's really important. But when it comes to socialism and communism, it seems like you're not supportive of the prior attempts and the authoritarianism involved, which I think is cool. You actually recognize that those systems, did fuck up they weren't able to establish socialism. Communism devolved into authoritarianism, and it seems like it seems like we don't have much to disagree on at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm just super pro democracy. I mean, when you asked what if I think that socialism has been tried in the past, I did answer yes, and I do want to clarify. I do not agree with Russia or China or any of those authoritarian countries. When I said yes, I was speaking more of like the Mondragon Corporation in Spain, right?
I've heard about that one.
Yeah, that's all I really gotta say about that. And hey, if we can both work together to spread democracy, right? I just don't like that idea of living the rest of my life in an undemocratic system for a third of it,
No, I understand it. A really just uncaring, unfeeling workplace where you have basically no say over anything that happens to you. Really, you just gotta do what you're told and try to get through the day. I've worked plenty of different jobs, so some of them okay, but what sucks that it would be nice if we could have more of a say over our workplace. I do feel like people would be happier for it, and it could potentially create better workplaces. Oh, actually, real quick, do you think if we moved over to a co-op system, it would potentially address issues like climate change?
I think that a lot of the same market incentives would naturally stay in place. But I do also think that, for example, ExxonMobil, ever since the 50s, has funded studies that have proven that climate change is real. And despite that, they lie about it.
Right.
And I think that there would be less incentive to do that in a corporation that was democratically owned.
Well, but like you said, I mean, if that profit motive is there, I think at the end of the day, that's probably what people are going to like. That's probably what's going to drive people. Especially since, once again, we have to remember the state of the country we live in. If we went over to a cooperative system right now, half the country is either completely apathetic towards climate change or they actively deny existence. So to claim that worker democracy would solve that, I think is a little fantastic. You have to address that disbelief somehow. It can't just be, oh, let's move over to worker democracy. There has to be something else there to make that happen.
Well, I think that like once big oil companies themselves, are concerned with like their families and their entire communities being wiped out because of climate change, that provides a lot more incentive to do something about it. And and those companies, they do fund a lot of that propaganda, which has caused doubt about climate change. I don't think it would necessarily like be a switch, I right, but it would at least set the groundwork, I suppose.
And once again, my issue with that is like if you have like essentially if you still have money involved, if there's still an incentive to lie about climate change, people are still going to do it because ultimately, at the end of the day, that is what's truly in their best interest. We all know when it comes to humans, short term versus long term, people more like often than not go for the short term, especially since nowadays, like you and me, we're probably not going to see the worst effects of climate change, right? We're not going to have to deal with that. So might as well make bank while we're here, like create a lot of wealth for our kids or whatever. And there's that too. You could argue, well, they're worried about the kids, but I would just go back to, once again, like half the country doesn't even give a shit about climate change. So they're probably not going to act in such a way, even under a worker democracy, that would address it.
And I guess I would just go back to once these massive corporations, which benefit themselves, are like democratically owned. Because I guess even from a different angle, once they're democratically owned, it isn't just a small group of people keeping that among themselves. It's much more likely that there are, say, humanitarians, people who not only care about their families, but also place a lot of value on the world as a whole that are up there. And I guess that would be a chance thing, but there are more die to roll, right?
I suppose I'm trying to think. God, even in a position where, like, if you did recognize that climate change is a big deal, I have a hard time believing that people, like, if you, let's say, you're running a co-op that, like, refines oil into gas or whatever, and that incentive still hanging over your head. You recently got this co-op established, but you never removed that incentive to lie about climate change, because it is there. The more people you convince that it's not a big deal, the more likely your business is. Well, I guess you're kind of ensuring the longevity of your business. So, like, let's say, like, lying about climate change and doing things that actively, like, increase the amount they're polluting. End up getting that business. Let's say each worker in that business ends up getting like a couple thousand extra dollars at the end of the year or something like that. Like not a crap ton of money, but like still a decent amount. Like a $2,000 bonus would be awesome, right? I think everybody would love that. Don't you think a lot of people would be motivated to lie about that and pollute more if they were going to get that reward at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to deny financial incentives, but I also don't want to downplay, I suppose, what possible effects democratizing oil companies could do in terms of fighting back against climate change. I still do believe that, and maybe I'm being idealist in doing so.
I would say that you are being idealist there, because once again, if you have half the country that already doesn't give a shit about climate change and all the same like profit motives, then I think you would probably see a similar thing happening to what we have today. Yeah. So I think this is pretty much the only place where we kind of hardcore differ there. But I don't know. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about?
From this, I got one thing. I also want to be clear that democratizing the workplace isn't necessarily my only like economic program that I support, though I do support it heavily. I do also want to implement a lot of social democracy. Yeah, I do also want to get a lot of welfare, I suppose, going too, because even if individuals are democratic within their corporation, that doesn't necessarily mean a lot of problems still remain that I think social democracy also addresses.
Right, wealth distribution would most likely still be an issue in like a co-op run system. And I would agree overall. Like I would consider myself like something of a social democrat. I'm for like pretty like strong safety nets, big lots of worker and consumer protections, and I think at the very least having some like government option for like healthcare and whatnot. So I like to keep like the healthcare industry competitive to help lower prices. Right. I think that's really really important. If not just fully making healthcare free. Right. And same with education. I think yeah, there's probably not going to be much disagreement for me. So
Yeah. Um, if you do want to keep talking, there is something that I think will strike disagreement with you. And it's
oh, sorry, just I said bring it on, come on, hit me.
all right. Yeah. You disagreed with Vosh talking about Republicans like as a whole being evil.
Oh
And
no!
I think
No! I'm sorry, keep going. I'm sorry.
I think there's a lot more there than you give credit for. I do agree that there are a lot of people within within the Republican voter base who are duped, let's say, but I think we are downplaying how evil, I suppose, a lot of like talking heads and necessarily some voters are.
Okay, so when it comes to politicians, they are gonna sometimes they do some sketchy shit. I'm not gonna lie. Like for instance, I mean, the thing that pops into my mind is like all those Republican politicians that like were shitting on Trump before he got elected, and then as soon as he became president, they were all sucking his dick, right? Like stuff like that is really scummy. But the thing is, crap. I don't know if it's like a party bias. I can't think of any examples, like really big examples of Democrats doing that necessarily. Like where a bunch of people shitting on fucking. Well, no, I feel like a lot of people probably were shitting on Biden before he got elected. Fuck, I don't. Damn, I don't know about that one. I would say, okay, I want to focus on the people, just the average voter. So I wouldn't even say that they're necessarily duped. It seems like a lot of the times there is like a fundamental, like philosophical, just disagreement, right? Like the best example is for abortion. It seems when it comes to when that fetus becomes a baby, that is a purely philosophical question. That is like purely up for the individual to answer on their own. Well, and that's why I think it would be good to have it legal, right? So that because once again, like it's fine if you don't want to get abortions and all that, but like some people don't agree that that's a baby and they should be able to, like avoid that 9-month pregnancy, all the fucking costs that come with that, and having to raise a child for 18 years. But like they see those fetuses as children, like right from the moment of conception, that is a child. And if you abort it, you are killing a child. They really do think they're trying to stop like a baby genocide, right? So like they're not just misguided, and they're certainly not doing it because they're evil. They have good intentions there, and it's hard to like on an objective level disagree with their logic.
I do agree that a lot of Republicans do believe that from the moment of inception there is a life. But two things, I suppose. Some of them are definitely lying. Some of them are definitely misogynist. I mean, we know the character of the sort of radical Republican, and that naturally bleeds into the rest of the Republican Party, right? And second off, maybe some of them do believe that fetuses are actual babies, are actual people. If one of these people were to be in a burning hospital and they could choose to save 100 vials of impregnated eggs or one actual living, breathing baby, if they do believe that those 100 vials are people and choose to save them, sure, they think they're being moral, but I see that and I think they're evil.
No, it leads. I would say that trying to argue that at the moment of conception, that is a living person that we need to like give all the rights that we would like a normal person. It does lead you to some ridiculous hypotheticals like that, very much so. Because like I'm like pro-abortion, but it's at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think they're like okay. Sorry, let me restart there. I'm gonna back up. Those ridiculous conclusions. A lot of Republicans that believe that fetuses are like children and all that, or like a fertilized egg is like that is a human life. They don't typically think about those hypotheticals. It would be interesting to argue, and I have actually had some abortion debates with like coworkers and stuff. Don't do that. It could potentially ruin fucking relationships at work. But
I would never do that.
I am really outgoing and really opinionated, and I don't have a filter, so I have done that a few times. But a lot of the times, like actually, speaking of my coworkers, that's the best example I have. A lot of the times, even when confronted with that, they just back up to like a feeling statement. Like it just doesn't feel like that is like not a person to me. I'm trying. I certainly wouldn't call them evil for that. Maybe like they're definitely being kind of illogical, but yeah, they're no way evil in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm willing to compromise that Republicans are illogical for sure.
Okay, well, to be fair, right? I was gonna say, taking the most extreme views on the Republican Party and just saying that bleeds out, you have to recognize that happens with Democrats. What about like, where do you stand on Rittenhouse?
Rittenhouse, he had no idea that the people he was shooting would so happen to be bad people. I do think he should have been arrested. He went out.
Oh no.
He went out of his way to go into danger,
No. Okay, so this is actually a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like the Democratic Party does go to ridiculous like lengths sometimes, just like the Republican Party, and Rittenhouse is one of them. That was like unambiguously self-defense. He got chased down by a guy. He tried to like everything in his power. He did like everything he could to try to remove himself from the situation, but freaking Rosenbaum would not stop. Rosenbaum got super duper close to him before like Rittenhouse even pulled the trigger. And then he was being chased by like how many people again? And they were like right on top of him. One guy tried to like fucking smash his face in with a skateboard. The other one pulled out a pistol, right? So like that is just unambiguously self-defense to me. I don't like there are arguments like, oh, he put himself in that situation. Yes, but he had every right to be there. He has as much right to be there as any other protester. The gun across state lines thing, it seems like the court didn't I need to look into the reasoning why they didn't charge him for anything when it comes to that, but it seems like that wasn't a big issue when it came to his case. It's just like, Democrats do it too. Like when it comes to denying like certain scientific fields like psychiatry and stuff, and then with the Rittenhouse stuff, not liking how the court ruled and saying they're corrupt. This is kind of what I'm talking about. Like the Democratic Party can be just as fucking insane. Like what do you? I'm sorry. I threw a lot at you right there. Were there any points I brought up Rittenhouse wise that you disagree with?
Rittenhouse, like. He knew, or at least I'm pretty sure he knew that he was going into a violent scenario, right?
Well, yeah, that's why he brought the gun with him, right? For protection.
Right. He went there knowing.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure. His main purpose going there was to defend businesses. But once again, he still had every right to go there. Just because he knew like things could get violent, and he did, obviously, doesn't mean that he had no right to be there, no right to have a gun on him, all that. But sorry, keep going.
Yeah. Rittenhouse, he may have been protecting businesses, yes, but at the end of the day, his actions displayed that he cared more about property value than people's lives, right?
I'm sorry, I got to stop you on that point. But does that, like, in a legal sense, like, does that get him on anything, like, legally speaking?
No.
Okay, well, so, like, what would you say? Legally speaking, then, like, what actions of his that night would you consider to be illegal, like punishable?
The only thing I have is the taking a gun across state lines. Yeah.
Okay, and once again, I'm not entirely sure about the legality of that, but they ended up not ruling on that. So, or no, well, they might have ruled on that actually. He didn't get charged for anything though. Well, it seems like our justice system did its thing, and we found out that he was like it was self defense, right? Can you see how it feels like my party's going a little insane when you still to this day have people saying that Rittenhouse should have been like thrown in prison?
Yeah, I do. I'll admit myself. Yeah, I I had forgotten the case. I forgot he
No,
was doing self-defense.
you're good. You got me on populism. I got you on Rittenhouse. How about that?
All right.
Okay. So yeah, well, okay. Going back to what spawned that discussion. I would say the Democratic Party can be just as guilty of like going fucking crazy as the Republican Party can. That seems to be just like a massive people issue. Like okay, so when it comes to individuals, it's just when I'm approaching them, even if I have massive, like fundamental, like moral disagreements with them, I typically don't walk away thinking of them as evil. Most people seem to be really well intentioned. Well, especially so I have a lot of anecdotes when it comes to talking about conservatives because I live in a pretty conservative place, and I've had a lot of talks with people about various things. I'm not saying that means like I'm 100% right, but it seems like in my experience, Republicans they're just they really are just like Democrats at the end of the day. Like I mean, they fucking go to work, they come home to their families, fucking all that shit. Like. Just because they have certain like political beliefs that differ from yours doesn't necessarily make them evil. Even if you think those political beliefs are bad, yeah, you still have to recognize that like why they think those things, and that they're most likely not coming from a place of, oh, I just want women to suffer.
The same can be said for a lot of political groups, though, right? Like, I don't think anyone joins any ideology thinking I want to do harm. Um,
Okay, so at least okay, so we agree on that level. So accidentally doing harm, you would still consider that to be a sort of evil?
which are bad to be evil, right?
Wait, I'm sorry, you cut out for the first part. Can you like start at the beginning?
I would consider having morals which are bad to be evil, right? Um,
Well, things you
I
have to
guess
how do you have to be able to express or articulate why those morals are like evil or like bad, I guess. Like okay, going back to the fetus
okay.
stuff. So I understand, like from my point of view as a Democrat, I understand that when it comes to abortions, like that fetus probably shouldn't be granted like well, obviously not full autonomy. It's not even like walking and talking yet. But it probably shouldn't be granted every single right that we already grant like existing humans, because it's like it's more of the potential for life. I feel like that's something Republicans and Democrats can both agree on to an extent, that it's more of a potential for life there, whereas like the person carrying it is like that is an actual valuable person, and it would be weird to value the potential over the existing, right? Oh my god, where was I going with that? Where the fuck was I going with that? I'm so sorry. Once again, my brain's scrambled today. Um. Okay. Why did I start saying that again? Help me.
We were doing Republicans are evil, and you were disagreeing with that.
Right. I'm just trying to. What exactly prompted me to say that? Oh wait. Okay. So when it comes to morals, okay, we're talking about bad morals. I understand from our perspective. There we go. I remember. Okay, I just started getting all tangential. from our perspective, it's really easy to see the pain and suffering that women can go through because of like forced like pregnancies and stuff like that. But once again, from a Republican standpoint, like 9 months is not that big of a deal compared to like that life. That life is so much more valuable than 9 months of your time, right? So like morally speaking, they obviously because of that would like an argument similar to that would think that they have the better, the more good moral system, right? Well, how would you like prove that they don't? How would you prove them wrong?
At one point or another, I feel you have to like put your foot down and say this you you can believe this, you have the right to believe this, but you can't believe this. I'm thinking especially of Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk. I've had that in my mind ever since I brought up this discussion. I think this is a good time to like talk about them. Nick Fuentes is an out and out actual, like, he calls himself a neo-Nazi. And he said that he had to get more radical in his messaging, specifically because centrist Republicans, like, for example, Charlie Kirk, mirror his rhetoric so similarly that without him getting all shouty, they sound essentially the same.
I can actually see that being a problem business-wise. Yeah, but it's still, that is such a bad excuse for getting... So, no, I do not condone anything Nick Fuentes. I would still hesitate to call him evil necessarily, but, like, yeah, the Nazi crap, that's, like... If I were going to call anybody evil, I said this about Trump as well, like, but Nick Fuentes, if I was going to call anybody evil, maybe it's still, like, writing off people as evil is just... I just don't think it's the right way to go about it. But I'm sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I will admit fully that going up to people and calling them evil isn't the best way to start a conversation. But I myself have a hard time reconciling with the fact that centrist Republicans like Charlie Kirk can be so similar to neo-Nazis like Nick Fuentes that Nick Fuentes feels he has to get more radical, without looking at that and saying, damn, the Republican establishment as a whole, even if it has good parts, is on the whole bad. It is evil.
Nick Fuentes is pretty popular. I don't know if he's representative of like the average like Republican though. It can be easy to start thinking that if you're online a lot. Like I'm online quite a bit. Well, obviously I'm running a YouTube channel and stuff like that, but it can be easy to like look at somebody like Nick Fuentes and be like, oh, he's emblematic of a broader like Republican sentiment. I don't know if that's true though. I really don't. I feel like a lot of like
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm saying that he is very explicitly radical. Charlie Kirk isn't. Charlie Kirk is fairly accepted mainstream. And Nick Fuentes is saying that Charlie Kirk mirrors him so much that he feels he has to get more radical, that he feels he has to up his rhetoric.
Can you give me like the worst example of something Charlie Kirk has said? Just off the top of your head.
I'm
not super familiar with Charlie
Kirk. Not
Charlie
off the
Kirk.
top of my head, no.
I'm just not super familiar with Charlie Kirk. I would say, does he like dog whistle a lot? Does he imply like we need to like preserve our white heritage and crap like that, or like?
I do not have any Charlie Kirk quotes off the top of my head. I know that, say, for example, the Caitlyn Bennett has had some like Discord messages leaked that have shown that she calls herself either a Nazi or a fascist, I'm pretty sure.
I have a lot of trouble believing this is... It's kind of like... Well, actually, this is a great. It's kind of like looking at Hassan or Vosh and saying like, well, they're really popular. They have a lot of mainstream appeal. Well, to Vosh, not as much. So like that must be the like mainstream like democratic opinion. When in a lot of cases it's not. Those two can go really far left sometimes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, online and in real life, um, I do agree that people have different levels online and in real life in terms of uh, popularity. I do also want to say, though, that I'm pretty sure Charlie Kirk has talked with the president.
Has he? Hold on. Okay,
I
here.
think so.
I looked it up, by the way. Yeah, he does have a significant following. That is very true. He's definitely a big freaking political pundit. Talk.
I think it might have been with Trump Jr. Shit.
Talk. Oh, Trump Jr. Maybe. Talk with Trump.
Yeah,
I'm just
Donald
guessing.
Trump Jr. takes to the Charlie Kirk show to downplay Saudi connections, noted by New York judge. Okay.
Okay, that would definitely be that. That is a little bit concerning. If well, once again, I'm not super familiar with Charlie Kirk and like how he talks about stuff though. You're sure that he's like got some pretty extremist views. It's not just like mainstream, like pro life stuff or like be like fiscally conservative crap or whatever.
That's the thing, though, right? He is pretty mainstream, and Nick Fuentes, a neo-Nazi, is saying that he mirrors his, as in Nick Fuentes' rhetoric.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, like, I just need to look into it more. I need to know how extreme he gets, or like look for like implications in his messaging, stuff like that. I'm not familiar enough with him. I would say though, yeah, he's definitely a significant figure, especially if you had a talk with fucking Trump or Trump Jr. And once again, just looking at his following, like he definitely has like he's got significant outreach for sure. I'm not gonna, I won't deny that. But once again, I'm just gonna go back to like you can make the same criticism for like Democrats. Like I think Hassan is incredibly. He's the biggest like left-leaning political streamer in the fucking world, and I'm so unhappy about that fact because having a goddamn communist like represent the left online is just why did that happen? So I would say like you could definitely criticize the left for like similar things. I still wouldn't call this necessarily a Republican issue. Well, it's just like at the very least, if you're going to write off Republicans for being evil, like you have to do the same when it comes to like Democrats and some of the crazy crap they can say, because there is craziness coming out of the Democratic Party. It's just like for me anyway, it can be harder to see because I'm more in line with the Democratic Party, right? You're typically less critical of the party you associate yourself with. So
Yeah, that's true. Huh.
I would say all the Trump rhetoric, though, that stuff, once again, if there was ever a politician to call evil, it would definitely be Trump. I will 100% give you that one. I just don't think ordinary, like, Republicans, I think a lot of them are pretty damn, like, they have some weird ideas sometimes. Like, I talked to a coworker, he thought that California had, like, he heard apparently California's got this plan to like by 2050, I think, move over to like only electric vehicles. Right, it's going to be a slow transition. I'm walking to work one day and I start talking to one of my coworkers, and I hadn't heard about this yet, and he said that California had done it just like instantly. They had banned like internal combustion engines, and I was like, well, if they did that, they just wrecked their economy. So yeah, that would be really stupid. It turns out it was absolutely wrong. Stuff like that. They get weird ideas sometimes. Democrats do as well, though. But overall, I would say like if you had a group of Republicans and you just plucked one out randomly, they would probably have really standard conservative beliefs. They probably wouldn't have any like weird ass ideas about like like race realism or like like a white genocide or like anything like that. Maybe Trump stuff. Once again, probably definitely some weird ideas, Trump stuff. But everything else, they're probably more moderate about. I would almost guarantee you that.
There is something interesting that I think you should look into. I'm pretty sure that when Republican voters are polled on what Republican policy is, like a surprising amount of them believe that the person telling them that is lying. I'm pretty sure there's been a study on that, and I think you should look into it. Um, I'm pretty sure that's true. Like they do not believe the cruelty their party supports.
Well, and then in that case, it's more about like outreach or like how do you convince these people if they believe that it's still I still wouldn't necessarily I don't know. Oh god, I'm trying to think of another way of explaining it. Oh no, the if I no. I just don't like, especially when we're dealing with contentious subjects that haven't fully been resolved. I think it's really hard to write people off as evil. And sorry, once again, my point when it comes to not calling people evil, it wasn't that like that's a bad way to start a conversation. Of course it is. It's more like as soon as you write off someone as being evil, it like you're kind of dehumanizing them in a way that makes it hard for you to understand why they believe what they believe. Like if you just write something off as like evil or somebody off as being a monster, like a school shooter, you could write him off as being a monster so easily, right? But once you do that, like any want to look into it more or like try to understand why he did what he did is kind of gone. You kind of lose some understanding when you just write people off like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Uh, I guess the only qualm I have about that is that if we can't, like, it seems to be referring mostly to the pragmatics of calling someone evil. No.
Well,
Uh,
so well, yeah, in part, well, especially since like if we like write off half of America as being evil, like then America, this whole process we got going on is a cooperative, right? Or well, not a cooperative. Yeah, you know what I mean. It requires cooperation from pretty much everyone involved. Even when we have disagreements, we have a system in place to try to resolve those disagreements. The thing is, though, if you once again write off half of America as being evil, it leads to some bad conclusions. Like, I mean, if you're dealing with bad actors and they're all fucking evil, then you might as well just start killing them, right? Or some shit. Like, I mean, if you're dealing with an evil, you're almost like morally obligated to eliminate it. Am I wrong?
um, I don't view necessarily evil people as unchangeable, I guess. And I guess that's a disconnect there. Like I can call them evil, but I also think that they can improve too, right?
Well, but the thing is, more often than not, like if there's any change in like political ideology, it's a gradual process that takes a crap ton of time, and the majority of people never really go through significant change like that. Most people stick with what they were like raised with, right? So I don't even know how true that is. Honestly, I don't know how much people can change when it comes to political beliefs. Yeah, we have outliers like Hunter Avalon, right? He went from like being super standard conservative to being like pretty far left. But more often than not, like the average person is probably not going to shift very much when it comes to their like political beliefs.
Mm, yeah.
Okay, so here I'll draw us back to that question then. Like, if you're dealing with an evil, there's almost an implication there that you need to fight against it or like eradicate it almost like if you can. Uh, like, what do you think about that?
Um, like
Or how about this? How about
I
this? How
do
about this?
believe.
Here, let me put it a different way. So let's say that there's no chance in hell you're ever going to change Republicans' minds when it comes to the evil things they do. What options do you have left at that point? Like you're dealing with an evil once again, and evil seems to imply like some sort of it's almost like a call for action when you call something evil, right? That you need to like once again get rid of that evil. So you're not able to change their minds, but they're evil. So like what do you do at that point?
Um, I I guess I'd mainly count on public education. Then I'd try to get like state education um properly going. I do think right now it is underfunded. I do think that's part of the problem. I think especially there should be like a civics class or something that people should take. I don't know if there is one. I went to public school, but if there isn't one, it should absolutely be implemented. Um,
Yeah, can I ask
farm.
you? I want to get us on a slightly different track. Do you live in a pretty liberal area, or do you have many encounters with people that have like genuinely conservative beliefs?
Uh, I go to college. I'm in a city, but one of my close friends who I've made only recently going to college is a conservative. So,
Okay, but it sounds like the majority of the people you interact with on a day-to-day basis are probably pretty liberal. Is that true?
yeah.
Okay,
And
yeah.
I'd say that my conservative friend is also fairly like apolitical. Like his family is conservative. He doesn't talk about politics much, I think. He just gets it from there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so once again, I live in a pretty conservative place, and maybe I feel like a lot of the times when people are like really like willing, like easily willing to like accept the fact that Republicans are evil, not the fact, sorry, accept this idea that Republicans are evil. I feel like it comes from. Wait, okay, I'm sure you've heard about this. So let's say you have a town that's been like pretty much, it's like not just majority white, it's pretty much just like all white, and it has been for like decades. And then you start getting immigrants coming in, like let's say Mexicans or whatever. At first, there is this sort of like repulsion, like these people are alien, these people are different from me, they're probably bad. But after time, you get used to them, you see they're not all that bad, you adjust. I feel like a lot of the times when liberals have this idea that conservatives are evil, it's simply because they're removed from like any conservative population. They don't interact. Like for me, I interact with these people when I go to the store. I interact with these people like in my neighborhood. I interact with these people all the time, and it's so easy for me to see that these people are like genuine, good-hearted people that have reasons for believing why they believe or what they believe, and they're no way like evil. So I guess, can you see how in my position it's weird when people try to write off all Republicans as evil, because like literally like I'm saturated with Republicans. I see them every day. Like they're my friends and coworkers and stuff. So it's just it's insane to me.
Yeah. Like I don't think that if a person is evil, I guess, in a political sense, they're necessarily going to be evil in an interpersonal sense.
But like, I
Um,
guess you could say that about school shooters. Like, maybe they weren't evil when it came to the friendships. Maybe they weren't evil when it came to like dealing with the other aspects of their life. But they still ended up shooting a school, and they're like, just because of that one aspect of evil, they're written off as being completely evil, right? It doesn't take like a holistic evil to make someone like evil, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Like Hitler could have been perfectly good too. Is like he could have embodied almost every like moral we strive to achieve as people, except for, but then there's the whole killing the Jews part. Yeah, like that sort of thing. Like it only really takes one evil to make someone like a fucking monster, right?
Yeah. This goes to my point though, doesn't it? Like this is a score for me.
Well, no, because you were saying that like they're only like evil when it comes to politics, but outside of that, and I was saying that, well, yeah, but if they're evil in one aspect of their lives, we usually just call that person a monster, right?
Yeah.
Wait,
And
there,
like
wait, there must be some sort
I
of
guess
disconnect.
I guess I'd go to like this example. Like a Ku Klux Klan member like might have only like they can be evil, but they can also like be with their family and love their children and on occasion help their wives bake apple pies.
Okay, hold on. There's
Um
there's a disconnect here. There's a disconnect. Hold on. Okay, so
yeah.
what I'm saying is it's really weird to write these people off as evil, but you're saying that like we can ignore those aspects of evil because like in ordinary life they're fine. But I'm saying that you can't really ignore that evil because it kind of becomes all encompassing when it comes to like dealing with that person, even if it is just in one aspect of their life. That I thought that's where we were there. You were trying to say it's kind of almost like contained in this one area, and I'm saying no, there's a bleed out.
I would disagree with that then, I suppose. I do think that you can live separating your political life from your personal life. I think that most people actually tend to do that. apolitical sort of people.
No, but I'm talking about specifically evil. Like, once again, a mass shooter, he can't really, like, after he's done the mass shooting, like, just live a normal life after that. He's just kind of evil at that point, even though, like, even if he was perfectly fine in every other aspect of his life. Like, I don't think you can just, like, step out of that. If you're truly evil, you can't just, like, just step out of that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, for a school shooter, like, I think that person can be rehabilitated, you know?
No, but it's more about, like, perception. Like, you would agree that even though they only did that one bad action in that one context, they're still, like, that's a really fucked up person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if Republicans are evil, that doesn't just, you can't just contain that in politics. If they're evil, they're evil. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can live with conservatives. I could, but, like, they have bad policies. And I will also say that, like, a great majority of them, like, are, like, this is going to sound condescending, but they are confused on conservative policy and on liberal policy, in a large part because of, like, conservative media sort of just blatantly lying.
I will agree with you. One thing I've heard anyway is the more educated someone is, the more likely it is that they're, like, going to be more left leaning. I don't know if that's, like, always true. I'm not even sure how true that statement is. I need to look into that more. But if that's true, then, like, yeah, it seems like, yeah, the more well educated you are, the better grasp you have on the world and how everything works, the more likely you are to lean a little bit more towards the left. I will give you that. Writing these people off as, like, evil. Like, let's go back to, like practical statements. Like, there's already a massive divide, pretty much solely. I mean, there's always been a divide when it comes to politics. It's always been contentious, but Trump has, like, taken that divide and just, like, fucking ripped it open. Don't you think it's bad to start, like, doing that in kind, to respond in kind to that? I mean, we're just going to make the division worse and worse and worse. Like, because if you call these people evil, like, you're actively out here saying, if a Republican listened to this conversation and you're kind of, like, trying to say that they are evil and, you know, like, the policies they advocate for and all that, do you think you'd ever be able to convince them of anything?
No, I wouldn't be able to convince them. No. Yeah,
right.
you're
Yeah, so, like, we shouldn't widen that political divide. Things are already bad enough. I don't think Democrats need to start coming out here. Like, I think Vosh is incredibly well. I mean, he's closed off his community to the outside world anyway. He's not going to convince anybody that's not his community already. But I think it's just such a bad way to go about it. It's just such a bad way. And once again, it's just like, if you get to know these people, they're really not, like, it's almost funny to me, like, calling them evil. Like, oh, my neighbor, I almost said his name. He's, like, one of the most kind-hearted guys I have ever met in my life. I actually worked with him for a bit, and, like, to call him evil is just, like, the most insane thing to me. I don't know. Here, real quick, can we talk about Vosh? Are you a fan of Vosh?
I am a pretty big fan of Vosh, yeah. He recently posted a video saying that Italian food is bad, though. You're not going to get me to defend that.
I saw that. I didn't watch it, but I saw that. I was like, come on. I guess you could call it mid if you want. I mean, it's become so ubiquitous that, like chances are, if you eat Italian food, it's probably going to be mid-level Italian food, right? Like, because so many people are making it, and the majority of people that are making it probably aren't, like, making the most high-quality Italian food out there. I think it really just depends on who's cooking the food, right? But okay, sorry, yeah. Stupid. We're not here for food. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, I went off on that one. Anyways, I have a few problems with Vosh. So I used to actually watch him a lot. He's one of the big things that really pushed me into politics. I've always been, like, vaguely left leaning. There was a time where I was almost kind of dipping into the right wing sphere, but I've pretty much always been on the left. And then I discovered Vosh, and I really got into his content. He really got me hyped up about politics, and that's why I'm passionate about it to this day. I do have him to thank for that. But there were some things, even when I was watching him, so, like, there's like when I was still, like, you know, more or less a fan of him, that, like, I hated, first off, his, like, almost intentional mispronunciation of words. Are you kidding me? Aesthetic. I don't even know how he says it. How's he say it? Like, aesthetic or aesthetic? It's aesthetic or something like that. It's aesthetic. You can just say normal. But no, he does that kind of crap to sound smart. And I think that's what like the majority of his talking boils down to. It's just him. He sounds good when he talks. That's the only reason why he's so convincing. It's just like he sounds really good. He's really good at talking. But sorry. So I have a problem with like the things he does to like lift himself up above other people and make himself seem smarter. I think it's really, really cringy. And then there's his rhetoric when it comes to Republicans. There's the fact that he has how many times in the past gone like, when the day comes, talking about fucking like violently overthrowing the fucking government. There's some things, even as a Vosh fan, like it's just hard to not recognize that those things are insane. It's just, sorry, what do you think about that? I'm starting to rant.
I think that in the not necessarily recent past, but he has changed from a revolutionary sort of outlook of socialism to a more reformist version of socialism, which I do appreciate, because I do think that if revolution is necessary, there's never gonna be any socialism.
Okay, has he come out and just straight up like condemned like a violent revolution, political violence and stuff? Has he like essentially made amends for like saying that crap for years?
I think that his criticism of it is more pragmatic.
So that's no. Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
And then I don't mean to drag this up. I actually, if you're familiar with my content, I don't know if you watched my sexual harassment video, like where I wanted to, I was toying around with the idea of potentially doing a video on the Poppy situation. I'm sure you've heard of it. But then I was like, no, dude, it's like, that was like 5 years ago. It's like, it's so weird because like the people involved, it seems like they reached some sort of conclusion on it. So it feels really kind of gross to like rehash all that. Then I found this bad empanada video where he's like trying to cancel Vosh like 5 years after the fact. I think that's kind of stupid, but at the same time, Jesus Christ, have you seen those messages?
I actually don't know about this Vosh drama. What's it called?
Oh, the Poppy situation. Oh, okay. So once again, this is old news. It's been resolved, more or less. He never really apologized for it, but he did kind of take responsibility, kind of. So maybe about almost 6 years ago, I think, he was in Destiny's community. I'm sure you know that. He used to be a really big part of Destiny's community. And he would talk to this person on Discord a lot called Poppy. So he ended up saying some real gross shit. So essentially, he sexually harassed her like a lot. He actually, oh fuck, here I can link you, because in the video he made about it during that time, he links all the DMs. Hold on, Vosh, Pop, not. Oh my god. There we go. In regards to recent drama, here I'll link you the video as well as the link in the description. What am I doing? I'm doing this on my fucking desktop. Holy crap. I am mind-fucked. Yeah, you can... I only was able to get through about 1/10 of the messages, but then at like the 10th time he brought up his dick, that was pretty much like, that's where I had to stop. So he... Basically, they were friends and whatnot. They talked quite a bit about a lot of different things, and just seemingly at random, he would bring up just like he would be like, oh, by the way, do you want to see my cock? Oh, hey, by the way, oh god, like I can feel the like, I can feel the sexuality in the atmosphere. Oh, the flirtations, like it's palpable, crap like that. Even though she said repeatedly, no, I don't want to see your dick. No, I'm not interested in being in a relationship with you. She brought up the fact that she has a boyfriend, and he just kept going. It was so obvious that she was not interested in doing any of that stuff with him, and he would not stop pushing. Here, I'm going to link it in general. So that's Vosh's video, and then the link. Here's the link. So once again, you don't have to go over this stuff now, but I would definitely recommend going through it at some point. This second link in particular, it's just like, it's not some of them. There are other things as well. that aren't in these documents, like after the fact. After they had a big falling out, because she came out and like started talking about how he was sexually harassing her, because he started doing something similar to another person, even though it seemed like that person reciprocated more. So it wasn't as bad. It turned out that they were kind of mentally deficient though, so it was still kind of iffy. But I don't think he knew that, and I think he did cut off contact as soon as he found out, to be fair to him. I'm not trying to, like, once again, this stuff was, like, years ago. I just want to keep reminding people that it was years ago, it's been resolved. I don't necessarily think he should be canceled for it, like, nowadays, as long as he's not still doing it, and there's no evidence to suggest that he is. But he started bringing up things after the fallout, like, if I, like, you know, fucked her in the ass, I bet her anus would pop out a little bit and crap like that, like really rapey things. I get it's the internet and all that, and well, especially like 6 years ago, the internet, the olden times of the internet. So like this stuff was a little bit more common, but it's still like, wow, like holy crap. But once again, he has not, as far as I know, done anything like that ever again. He got on Destiny's stream, they hashed it out. He was really resistant to taking on any responsibility, but then he made the video I linked you, and he kind of takes responsibility, but he also kind of doesn't. He literally says like something along the lines of, oh my god, what do you say? It's now, did I sexually harass her? Well, I don't think the answer is important, or something like that. Like he just like completely dodged that. Like he wouldn't like own up to the fact that it was straight up sexual harassment, which is insane to me. But also, I feel like that's just kind of like par for the course when it comes to Vosh. He seems to like, he's really good at talking, and he doesn't seem to like to take accountability a lot of the times. So like, I mean, those two paired together, he's going to be able to dodge a lot of bullets. But I'm not sure. Are you kind of checking out what I linked you?
Yeah, I opened the logs. It's gonna be a little while for me to read all.
Yeah, that's why I said. That's why I was saying you can check them out like on your own time. It's a lot. Once again, I was only able to get like a tenth of the way through before. Like it was hilarious. They had this like really deep personal talk, like 20 messages like deep, about how she struggles to like dealing with people and all that. And then at the end, he's like, "Oh, by the way, do you want to see my dick?" It's like, "Oh my god, stop! Just stop!" Oh. No, actually, I could not read past that. It was too much. Once again, I know you like Vosh, and I'm not necessarily saying that you shouldn't like him because of this past stuff. I think it's important to keep in mind, though, this is like the kind of person he is to an extent. I do think that there is room for change, of course, and once again, it doesn't seem like he's done this. So it seems like, at the very least, even if it was for selfish reasons, he hasn't repeated this behavior. So I don't think, as long as he's not repeating the behavior, and it doesn't seem like it because nobody's come out, people would come out too. Like they would come out and show like he's been sexually harassing me. Yeah, he's not repeating the behavior as far as anybody knows. So I think it's best to leave it in the past. But then Bad Abanada literally implied that if they had gone together in person, he would have sexually assaulted her, which is insane to me. It's insane to jump from sexual harassment to, oh, they would definitely R-word somebody. Like, that's what? So yeah, I think there's a lot of unfair criticism surrounding this when it comes to Vosh. But at the same time, this kind of stuff is good to keep in mind, I think. I don't know how good of a person Vosh is at the end of the day. And I especially don't like some of his ideas about the world. I don't know. But anyways, I think, you can check that stuff out on your own time. I think I got to wrap this up. I was surprised. It doesn't seem like we disagree on much. It seems like I was working under like a different idea of what populism was, and you were kind of able to like help me redefine it. So it seems like, we ultimately agree there. Now we agree there. And there's social and communism wise, there is not much of a divide between us. We seem to be pretty. And thank God you don't deny the fact that market indicators are important when it comes to like distributing resources, because I've heard that before and it's insane. That's like the only way we have on a large scale to figure out where to get resources to. But I guess if you do certain things on a local level, if you have a certain setup like that, maybe. But anyways, overall, we did not have that much to disagree on, which is cool. I think, like for me, by the way, I am a Destiny viewer. Not so much nowadays. I don't watch that much of his stuff nowadays. I probably watch more of Vosh's stuff just because I make videos on him. But see, look, Destiny viewers and Vosh viewers, we can get along. Okay, see, there's not that big of a divide between us. Yeah.
I guess just two things, final notes, whatever. I do think that market factors, market indicators fail slightly if, say, like for healthcare and whatever, and that's where the government steps in, and that's like social democracy. And exactly, I think you agree with that because you're also, yeah. And the second thing is, I mentioned that Republicans don't believe their party's like policy, and I just pulled up a study, and since we're linking stuff, I just wanted to link that there. And yeah, that's it.
Oh, this is gonna be interesting. Okay, yeah, I'll read this. Yeah, I'll read that in a little bit. Okay. Yeah, okay. I think, yeah, I'm pretty happy to leave things where they are. Yeah, decent conclusion to the conversation. Also, yeah, if you want to talk again in the future about anything, I mean, I'm going to keep uploading videos. You can keep being critical of me and all that. And if you want to, like, hash out disagreements, like, live again, yeah, we can do that. So just let me know.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for talking.
Yeah, thank you for talking. Yeah, have a good day.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Yeah, that was interesting. I was expecting a little bit more disagreement, but yeah, no, that person seemed really cool. So yeah, once again, thank you, Purple Potato, for having the discussion with me. I appreciate you. Anyways, yeah, love you guys. Bye-bye.